Step into day 2 of our epic 4-day walking tour of the National Mall in Washington, D.C. I'm taking you into the beautiful inner sanctums of our nation's founding, along with leading you to some secret places found in plain sight. As we start, let me ask you this question. What do you imagine while watching the news or scrolling your newsfeed? What reference point is in the corner of your mind? Is it a flashing image from a textbook or backdrop on a news program, an X post, an Instagram or Facebook reel? What if you could put more imagery and feeling to these places to fill in the gaps? I'm here to help. Hold on to your hats for this phenomenal trip to the National Mall. Welcome to day 2 of our epic 4-day Washington, D.C. walking tour. Day 2 was our hit the ground running walking tour to the eastern end of the National Mall in the morning, and then a complex set of excursions to rewarding sites poised in the central section of the National Mall. We even made good on a couple of day 1 workarounds and comically created the need for a couple more. The National Mall is absolutely one of the most iconic and picturesque plazas in the nation. It's all fun, exciting, and thrilling when on educational and meaningful adventures like this one huge field trip to our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Here's a basic list of where I will be taking you today. The U.S. Capitol grounds, the Library of Congress, oh my, I can't breathe, the Smithsonian Institution's National Air and Space Museum, the National Archives, oh my, I can't breathe at all, the observation deck of the old post office tower, a pop into the National Museum of American History, the observation deck of the Washington Monument, a wet but checked off workaround, the old Ebbett Grill, and Lafayette Park, which means another satisfied workaround, seeing the northern aspect of the White House. Awesome! Get ready, my armchair travelers, history seekers, urban explorers, and my trucker friends for day 2 of our epic 4-day adventure at the National Mall. Day 2 is another full day of fast walking, experiencing historical and contemplative sites on this more structured day with timed entries and reservations. My travel hack, the metro train to L'Enfant Plaza Station, will be our chosen way to enter our nation's capital, days 2 through 4. You are going to love what you see and feel as you travel across America with me to this extreme urban attraction. In day 1, we reached inside America's heart. I took you to the classic and iconic sites on the western portion of the National Mall and all around the tidal basin. From the Washington Monument, which we will get inside of this afternoon, to the White House, embraced by President's Park, and a load of unforgettable sights. And from the heart-wrenching war memorials to the iconic Lincoln Memorial and Jefferson Memorial. I fed you insider information to grow your appreciation for this magnificent locale. We covered over 5 miles on foot, and I totally wore the wrong footwear. I encourage you to watch my day 1 video so that you do not miss out on any part of my epic 4-day adventure. Now it's a fresh day, and we started at the terminus of the Green Line train at the Branch Avenue station near Joint Base Andrews. With my feet taped with kinesio tape and my Skechers, I was better prepared for more fast walking and even more hours on the ground than day 1. There is a massive parking lot at Branch Avenue station, making it the perfect station for us. Trains from every direction from the surrounding region feed into the center of Washington, D.C., launching you into the heart of our capital city. The friendly Metro staff helped us to get acquainted with the process of buying and loading the required Smart Trip Pass to go through the turnstiles to reach the trains. App folks, download the app. I've always found the employees at public transportation facilities and on the phone helpful and kind. However, I have found the online information to be incomplete or already expecting you to know too much. In addition, most commuters are willing to help you, the obvious tourist. The train was a great choice since we were parked at a friend's home located in Maryland, an hour or so south of D.C. Scheduled trains left for D.C. every 7 to 8 minutes. Perfect. If we miss one just by a bit, another one will be there soon. In around 20 minutes, we were at the main metro station at L'Enfant Plaza subway station that is fixed in the heart of the city. We were ready to meet the challenges and expectations of the day. This was an efficient use of the morning commute and the best way to avoid the roadway traffic jams. I love riding trains. It's so exciting. For you compass-oriented travelers like me, all street numbers, letters, and direction identifiers are referenced from the U.S. Capitol. We had timed tickets for 10 a.m. at the Library of Congress, noon time tickets for the National Air and Space Museum, 2 p.m. timed entry tickets for the National Archives, and dinner reservations at Old Epic Grill at 5 p.m. We would be riding the train back to Branch Avenue Station later in the evening. How late depended on our level of exhaustion and the weather. It was 8:30, so we had a while to get some sights in as we walked east toward the Library of Congress. Our son headed the opposite direction to reach the ticket booth at the Washington Monument Lodge before 8:45 to attempt to get same-day tickets to the observation deck. We hoped to get tickets for around 4, just before dinner. Do you think he was successful? I think I've already spilled the beans. We strolled around the new Eisenhower Memorial, which was very well done. There was a small visitor center and I wanted to get the date stamp, but they didn't open until 10. You will find that many of the sites do not open until 10. This sort of surprised me. I'm not going to worry about getting the stamp here. Hopefully I can get it at another location. As you saw, this is possible in my day 1 video. I treasure my national park passport books and date stamps. They are a powerful collection of memories over the decades. I hope you are encouraged to get a passport book of your own. This memorial honors our general and president and the man responsible for establishing the interstate highway system in this nation. The wide memorial is in front of the Department of Education building. I'm thinking being at the Department of Transportation or the Eisenhower Executive Office building would have been more appropriate. What do you think? And are you a subscriber? I think you have to be a subscriber to leave me a comment, and I enjoy the feedback. There are bright, shiny, clean restrooms at the rear of this building. This is a good time to tell you that the trains do not have restroom facilities, nor do the train stations. Plan ahead for this possible inconvenience. We then passed a number of interesting sites at the intersection of 3rd Street Southwest and Independence Avenue, including the National Museum of the American Indian, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in the Hubert H. Humphrey Building, and the U.S. Botanical Gardens. The exterior gardens were undergoing a giant renovation project, and we could not enter because they were closed. This will need to be a stop on a different trip altogether. No work around here. The building would be open at 10, but we had other pressing places to be. Plus, we have been to similar historic gardens in Florida, Ohio, and Missouri. Maybe another time. We will have to see. Our son was calling. He announced success in getting timed entry tickets for 4 o'clock. Yippee! He was hoofing it across the National Mall to meet up with us at the General Ulysses S. Grant Memorial, found just west of the Capitol. He could have caught the train at the Smithsonian station and gotten off at Federal Center Southwest, but he can walk really fast. Orange arrows on the transit maps indicate entrances and exits to the stations. Being over 2 miles long, the National Mall is a massive park to traverse on foot. We headed north on 3rd Street and beat him there. After walking alongside the Capitol reflecting pool, we saw a flock of people and camera crews interviewing people. We didn't recognize any of them, do you? The Ulysses S. Grant Memorial is a presidential memorial honoring American Civil War General and 18th President of the United States, Ulysses S. Grant. It sits at the base of Capitol Hill. Its central sculpture of Grant on horseback faces west, overlooking the Capitol reflecting pool and facing toward the Lincoln Memorial, which honors Grant's wartime president, Abraham Lincoln. We will be back here on day 4 for more splendid photographs of the statue and more details about it. With still 25 minutes to spare, let's see what we can accomplish. The 3 of us crossed the street to the west side of the Capitol grounds. This is a beautiful side of the Capitol, and looking west, you can admire the length of the National Mall. I do want to make a strong note here. Your head will literally be on a swivel to see all the monuments, memorials, and locations of famous governmental departments that you have heard about all your life. I heard there are over 65 memorials and monuments at the National Mall. Trekking northwestwardly, we found the Summer House. How lovely. Completed in 1881, the Summer House is a splendid garden ensconced by a hexagonal red brick structure. The ornate oasis was a place where travelers could take a breather and refresh themselves with water in an era when people walked long distances just to run their weekly errands. I am taking you to gobs of places in this video, just as you experienced in my day one video. A person could probably spend a lifetime consuming all the information and investigating every nook and cranny and locations of special occurrences in this magnificent American city. Next, we coursed across Constitution Avenue to the Robert A. Taft Memorial and Carillon. Carillons are awesome. Do you know what a carillon is? If you want to know more about these fascinating musical structures, watch my video on the Bach Tower located near Orlando, Florida. I'll put the link in the description below. Above the statue is inscribed, "This memorial to Robert A. Taft, presented by the people to the Congress of the United States, stands as a tribute to the honesty, indomitable courage, and the high principles of free government symbolized by his life." And then I found out about the carillon, that it was originally played every 4th of July, but the bells are currently turned off due to deterioration. Well, that's a bummer. Passing across the front of the masked Supreme Court along 1st Avenue Northeast, we were looking around to find out where to enter the Library of Congress, as it was already 9:45. Boy, I'm glad I'm not wearing those flip-flops today. We spotted a line forming at the lower level on the west side of the building. That's the side that faces the Capitol. Architect alert. Let me rephrase that. Architect overload alert. This Italian Renaissance-style structure opened in 1897, nearly a century after the library's founding. During the 20th century, several presidents have decreed more and more sacred documents become a part of the collection, and at this time, the Library of Congress occupies 3 buildings. Our visit is to the original 1897 Jefferson Building. Now, a know before you go insert. Free timed entry tickets are required to enter the library's Thomas Jefferson Building. Tickets are available 30 days in advance. Free same-day tickets will be made available online each day at 9 a.m. Just be sure to know before you go. And something of major importance is that it is closed on Mondays and Sundays. Check the hours before you go. We stood in line for about 15 minutes, and I had printed out the QR codes for our 3 entry passes. They recommend taking a screenshot or printing out the passes. As with all buildings we would be entering during these 4 days, excluding the restaurant, we would pass through security screening. Some places didn't care if we had bottles of water, and some did. And by the way, this is also a potty stop. When researching for our visit to the Library of Congress, I saw that not only would we see the Jefferson Library, but there were 5-minute walkthroughs of the reading room. Here's the know before you go part. The Library of Congress welcomes visitors to join short 5-minute walkthroughs around the center desk of the grand main reading room, usually reserved for credentialed researchers. This special access offers visitors a glimpse inside of Washington's most beautiful spaces. Now, the main reading room is available to view on the first floor of the Thomas Jefferson Building, Tuesday through Friday, only at certain times during the day and on Thursday evenings. Be sure to check the website for the exact times to coordinate with your time tickets. I'm going to have to keep my voice down. We are in a library after all. As soon as we got to the information desk, I asked about the procedure for getting in the reading room, as I didn't want to miss out on this amazing opportunity. And they told me just get in line at 10:30. So that's what we did. We had 30 minutes. Let's see what we can do. We climbed the gorgeous stairway to reach President Jefferson's library. As you pass into this area, there are cases and displays filled with some of the most historical documents of this nation. I can only tell you this is so powerful and exceedingly overwhelming. The Library of Congress is housed in 3 buildings on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and this is the research library for the U.S. Congress and is considered the National Library of the United States. It is also the largest library in the world with a collection of, get this, more than 170 million items. The story of the Library of Congress began in 1800 when President John Adams approved a congressional act that moved the national capital from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. As a part of the bill, a sum of $5,000 was earmarked for books intended for use by the U.S. Congress. In August 1814, during the War of 1812, which we learned a little bit about in day one, British forces burned the Capitol, destroying the still small Congressional Library. The following year, Congress purchased Jefferson's extensive personal library, including some 6,487 books for $23,950, which became the foundation of the new Library of Congress collection. We're going to see it Hang on. Unfortunately, another fire in 1850, this time accidental, destroyed some 35,000 volumes, including almost 2/3 of Jefferson's original contribution. Just sickening, isn't it? At least to me it is. Let me show you the actual books of President Jefferson's library. I can't breathe. I have been to Jefferson's home, the bedroom where he died, and the cemetery where he was buried. But now I'm passing by this founding father's personal library. Guys, I hope you're enjoying this so far. Isn't this beyond exciting? The way the books are presented and preserved is just incredible. I know you're impressed. I wonder if President Jefferson read all of these. He didn't have YouTube, so maybe so. A history alert about the books that you are looking at in the Jefferson Library. There are 4 categories. The ones with green ribbons are books that were part of Jefferson's original library. Books that have been recently purchased to reconstitute Jefferson's library are marked with a gold ribbon. Books that are identical to books owned by Jefferson and which were located in the Library of Congress collections have no ribbon. And then there are some book boxes, and these are missing from the library. The Library of Congress is continuing to search worldwide for these missing books and will be adding them to the display as they are acquired. As we passed to other impactful displays, I was speechless. One of the most fabulous documents we saw was General George Washington's personal copy of the Declaration of Independence. I want to share with you more of the amazing documents and maps that we saw. I hope that you are grasping the emotions that ran through me as I was inches from these treasures. I am overtaken by passion simply writing this script. It was nearing the time to get into the line to enter the reading room. No bags, umbrellas, or basically anything of any size was allowed. There is open shelving at the entrance door for you to place your personal items. Yes, we were carrying umbrellas. Rain was forecasted for mid-afternoon. The Gutenberg Bible was on prominent display, also next to the line to enter the reading room. So we walked around that display as we waited for our time to enter. When Johann Gutenberg introduced printing with movable metal type to Western Europe, he revolutionized not only the book, but the very nature of communication. Gutenberg launched this revolution in 1455 in Mainz, Germany, with the printing of the Bible, St. Jerome's 4th century Latin Vulgate Bible. Text, once scarce and complicated to produce, was now easily created in multiples that were readily distributed. His Bible resembled a large Gothic manuscript Bible of that period. Most copies were printed on paper, but the Library of Congress copy is printed on vellum, a fine parchment made from animal skins. The library's copy is one of only several perfect vellum copies to survive. For nearly 5 centuries, this Bible was in the possession of the Benedictine order in their monasteries of St. Blasius and St. Paul in Austria, along with other 15th century books. It was purchased from Dr. Otto von Bohr by Act of Congress in 1930. Now it was time to enter the reading room. Besides being incredibly beautiful, the reading room looked like a library you would see in a movie set in an old European building. There were lots of desks for researchers, but there were only a few people at the desk. They didn't rush us through, but we did form a line passing in a circular fashion. This elaborate place is drenched in symbolism. 12 large figures surround the main dome. These elevated statues represent the different genres of books in the library, such as art, philosophy, religion, science, and history. Each statue holds representative items of significant value. For example, history is holding a mirror to look behind, but he's also looking forward to the future. There are no adjectives that are adequate to describe this place. This building is one of a kind. How fortunate I feel to be here and to be bringing you along with me. Back upstairs, look at this view across and into the reading room from this small upper-level platform. Now, for the Collecting Memories Gallery. One could spend a long time in this memories room. These are a few things that stood out to me. Historian alert! That's sort of a crazy thing for me to say, isn't it? These items were removed from President Abraham Lincoln's pockets when he was fatally shot and moved to the Peterson House across the street from Ford's Theater. A folding pair of eyeglasses with case. A large white Irish linen handkerchief with A. Lincoln embroidered in red on the other side of the handkerchief. The handkerchief has been turned over as a conservation measure. That's good. A silk-lined leather wallet. Lincoln was carrying 9 newspaper clippings in his wallet, including reports on unrest in the Confederate Army, emancipation in Missouri, and an article on the presidency. And then an ivory and silver multi-blade pocket knife. You're gonna love days 3 and 4 when I show off the Peterson House and Ford's Theater. And there was another workaround I had to solve. Next, the original yellow ribbon from the 1979 hostage crisis. How many of you remember this? How many of you have no idea of the origin of the yellow ribbon? Have you heard tie a yellow ribbon, around the old oak tree? In 1979, Penny Langan tied a large yellow ribbon around a tree in her yard in Bethesda, Maryland. Her husband, L. Bruce Langan, acting ambassador, was one of 53 hostages held in the U.S. Embassy in Tehran by Iranian revolutionaries. The ribbon remained a public reminder of the hostages until their release in 1981, at the time when Ronald Reagan was inaugurated president. She was inspired by the popular song, Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. Today, yellow ribbons remain a symbol of remembering and supporting the troops. There was tons to see in this room. You'll have to go there yourself. But I wanted to point out these two items because both Lincoln's pocket contents and Penny's ribbon were just ordinary items that became historically significant and that would transcend time and generations. I think that's called history. Time is of the essence and every moment counts, especially in timed entry passes. Are you excited so far? Did you make a pot of coffee or get a cup of tea? Maybe a tall South Carolina style sweet iced tea and some buttery popcorn? We've got a lot to do before dinner. It came time to leave the library as much as I didn't want to. So much to see and so little time. We needed to get to the Smithsonian by 11:50, but since we were right there, we thought we could pop into the Supreme Court building. No time tickets are required. We walked toward a guard to see where and how to get into the Supreme Court building. The guard was clear. No food nor fluids. Not even water. Well, we had protein bars and 3 waters. So we made the decision for our son to go on in with the time we had to spare, because he was flying out on Wednesday. We could wait outside because we could return on Thursday to do this workaround. While he was inside there, we crossed over to the Capitol Visitor Center to see if we could get in the gift shop. There were 2 really long lines, and we didn't have time to stand in one to go inside. Our exciting surprise on day 4 overwhelmed me again. I will save all about the Capitol and the Supreme Court for the day 4 video. Be sure to turn on the notifications so that you are alerted when I post new videos. Now that he was back out of the Supreme Court building, we crossed in front of the Capitol and saw lots of vehicles from out of state. Were these the cars of Congress members and senators or staffers? I spotted this pass on the ground to get into the House of Representatives. No, I didn't use it. This thing is huge, and it is indeed beautiful. I want to see inside. I want to see the statues from each state. Will I or won't I? Day 4 will reveal what happened. Have you taken a second to subscribe and to leave me a comment? What do you think so far? Are you having fun? What's your favorite thing? We made a quick trek west on Independence Avenue Southwest, then crossed up to Jefferson Drive Southwest to the front doors of the Smithsonian Institution National Air and Space Museum. We were first in line and we popped over to the coffee stand for an iced latte and a scone. Timed entry means timed entry. It was interesting to hear people talk about how they had entry tickets for an earlier time or didn't have one at all. To enter the galleries of the National Air and Space Museum, everyone must pass through security screening. This museum did not have restrictions on food or drinks. I'm just going to show you around. This place is huge and you're going to be overwhelmed. However, tops on my list were the Wright brothers airplanes, Amelia Earhart's plane, and the actual Spirit of St. Louis. I'd seen the phony one in St. Louis. This was the real one. We spent almost an hour and a half there. Please use these videos as a source, but do your own research. Believe me, it will make your trip go smoother. You see how many workarounds I've had to deal with already, and I poured over information for hours and hours and days before we went. It's time to get going. We need to cross the National Mall and be at the National Archives by 1:50. We had a full 20 minutes to spare, so our son recommended we pop into the National Museum of Natural History to check out a few things. 20 minutes, that's a long time. You can get a lot accomplished, or at least we could. This museum wasn't on our to-do list, but it is right here. On the upper level, in the Geology, Gems, and Minerals section, we could see the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is 45.52 carats, and it's from India. The sign reads, "You are looking at one of the world's most famous gems, renowned for its flawless clarity, rare deep blue color, and eventful history. It is surrounded by 16 white diamonds and suspended from a platinum chain bearing 46 more diamonds." Stunning. I love rocks, gems, and minerals, and one of the most phenomenal displays of these items I have ever found was at the Petroleum Museum in Midland, Texas. That is a really interesting video, plus I take you driving through the oil fields in West Texas. I've placed the link in the description below. Back to the jewels, gems, and minerals. Aren't these they're just amazing, incredible, fabulous, about all those adjectives. We also continued through a few more galleries, and we saw this giant female squid. We had to get to the National Archives building entrance. We passed more and more famous buildings, like the Department of Justice building. We walked directly into the National Archives, and there was not a line, and no one asked to see our passes. But we certainly went through security screening. The exhibits are open from 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. daily. This is an architect alert. This temple of our history will appropriately be one of the most beautiful buildings in America, an expression of the American soul. Herbert Hoover, February 20th, 1933, at the laying of the cornerstone of the National Archives building. After walking through a hallway, we did reach a line. The staff limited the number of people that went into the rotunda to see the most treasured documents of this republic, the U.S. founding documents. The National Archives is proud to display the entire Constitution of the United States for the first time ever. The Constitution was adopted in 1788, and the first 10 amendments were ratified in 1791. Today we know them as the Bill of Rights. Since then, 17 additional amendments have been ratified. Contained in the pages is a revolutionary system of Republican government ordained by the people. It is the result of the lived experiences of America's founders, who declared independence from Great Britain in 1776 in response to successive grievances against the British monarchy and Parliament. The founders were determined to forge a new path, one based on the idea that government is only legitimate when it possesses the consent of the governed. It is one of the oldest written constitutions in effect and one of the shortest in length. Some visitors might wonder, why is it so cold and dark in here? Before it came to the National Archives, the Declaration of Independence was displayed in a room where it was exposed to heat, smoke, and sunlight. Well, that doesn't seem too smart. Its faded ink is evidence of the damage that light, temperature, and humidity can do. To preserve the founding documents, the environment in the rotunda and inside the encasements is carefully controlled. The encasements, 24-karat gold plated titanium frames, are filled with non-reactive argon gas. Sensors monitor temperature and humidity and detect the presence of oxygen, which could cause deterioration. Fiber optic lighting and light reflective glass protect against fading. These high-tech chambers ensure that the opportunity to experience these precious documents will be available for generations to come. The National Archives website has recommendations for what to do with the amount of time you can invest there, whether it's 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or 90 minutes. Once we exited the rotunda, there were more documents in the hallway area from opening the vault. This is part of the featured document exhibit in the East Rotunda Gallery. On the ground floor, the David M. Rubenstein Gallery is where you will find one of the more unbelievable documents. It is one of only 4 surviving 1297 Magna Carta originals. That's the year, 1297. Can you imagine this? I found this almost unbelievable. Guys, I don't know how you're feeling about this, but I am just overwhelmed. I think this is the road trip to beat all road trips. We have just seen the original U.S. Constitution, the original Declaration of Independence, and now the Magna Carta. How can it get any better? This is just phenomenal. Pass into the Records of Rights exhibit that contains stupendous information of the history of this nation. The exhibits highlight how generations of Americans have sought to fulfill the promises of the founding documents. This was one of the most incredible places. I don't know how you could top the Library of Congress, but this came really close. I think they're twins. I think they're just incredible. You have to go to both of these places. The gift shop was hopping. I bought a new pair of sunglasses. On day 4, they would become my top shades. Our time to move on was here, and the rain had started and the wind had picked up. We tromped northwesterly on Pennsylvania Avenue, passing the J. Edgar Hoover FBI building. Pennsylvania Avenue is referred to as America's Main Street, and this section is within the Pennsylvania Avenue National Historic Site. As mist turned into a heavy sprinkle and the wind picked up, in front of us was the gorgeous old post office tower. This structure has an incredible history that includes being a famous luxury hotel. We were searching for the entrance to reach the clock tower observation deck operated by the National Park Service. Today, the old post office is leased by the General Service Administration as a luxury hotel. We found the entrance at the rear of the hotel. The tower is open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and the last entry is at 4:30 p.m. 7 days a week. The 270-foot-high observation deck allows visitors an awe-inspiring view of the city. After passing through a more limited security screening, you will go on through a hallway that is filled with maps and documents and photographs recording the history of Washington, D.C., from L'Enfant's vision of the nation's capital city and the locating of the territory of Columbia. A super cool item was the 1899 vault door that had been found on the 5th floor. There are tons of very amazing historical photographs. We continued down the hallway toward Voices, where we found a National Park Service ranger speaking to a group of people. They were all waiting for the elevator to reach the observation deck. I had it in the back of my mind to skip this because the main purpose to go there was to see all of DC, and the weather was growing inconducive to that purpose. But it was what it was. This is what memories are made of, right? We caught the elevator ride with views of the atrium of the 5-star hotel. It was easier to see in person through the mesh. This elevator took us to another floor with some artifacts from the clock tower, like the original clock hands. This is where we would catch the next elevator to the open-air view observation deck. This is the 3rd tallest building in Washington, D.C., at 315 feet. Our next major stop is the Washington Monument, which is the tallest at 555 feet. Well, as I presented in day 1, it's technically 555 feet 5 1/8 inches. Take a few minutes to read the historical clock information. Let's get on to the tower access floor. The wind was whipping and a heavy mist was blowing in sideways through the open-air observation deck. This is the actual clock mechanism. Amazing. Some of the windows had glass and some were open with wires screening the openings. I'm thinking a workaround is in order. Maybe we can return on Thursday. You will have to hit the notification bell so that you will know when I post day 4 to find out if we returned. The old post office tower is a federally protected site offering picturesque views of the nation's capital. The United States government constructed the postal building between 1892 and 1899. From the 270-foot observation deck, visitors are treated to a view overlooking several of the United States' prized structures. The ranger had mentioned to us to see how a lot of the government buildings were open in the center, and the buildings were built like frames. This was because when most of them were built, there wasn't air conditioning, and this helped create circulation through the buildings. From here, you can see the Capitol, the White House, the Washington Monument, the Pentagon, the Smithsonian museums, the Supreme Court, and the Lincoln Memorial. On a clear day, visibility may exceed 12 miles. National Park Service rangers are on duty at the lobby, the 9th floor, and the observation deck to educate visitors about the building and surrounding attractions. Time to move on. As we exited, we saw everyone's favorite, the IRS building. We were aiming toward the Washington Monument because we had 4 o'clock timed entry tickets. With a few minutes to spare and on our direct path was the National Museum of American History. Our son had been to D.C. a few months back, and he knew that we would melt when we saw what was just inside this massive museum. After passing through security screening, I saw the sign referring to the Star-Spangled Banner, the inspiration of the national anthem. As we walked around the wall, we saw it, the original Star-Spangled Banner that flew at Fort McHenry when Francis Scott Key penned the words to this American heart song. No photographs are permitted, and there are employees that are posed and poised right behind you to prevent anyone from sneaking a picture. So here is one more reason you need to visit Washington, D.C. yourself. When you see it in person, you will notice a lot of the material has been torn and cut off from the flag. After the war, people wanted souvenirs. Imagine that. Maybe that's another reason that this treasure is so well protected. I appreciate that. Now, to add insult to injury, I'm filming these outtakes. I'd set my glasses and hat on the couch, and Steve came in to see what I was doing and sat right down on my new National Archives sunglasses and broke them. I'm not very happy right now. I'm having to wear these sunglasses my friend Sam gave me. Do you have any extra sunglasses? Because my National Archives sunglasses are broken. Thanks, Steve. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. Now for the trek across the streets and uphill to the entrance of the Washington Monument. Unfortunately, the rangers made us stand outside in the rain until our timed entry. We then passed through security screening in the new facility that I mentioned in my Day 1 video. There were only a handful of us that decided to take the elevator ride to the observation deck in the upgraded elevator. I guess I can understand that, but An opportunity to ride in this historic structure can't be missed as far as I'm concerned. We found the statue of our first president, and this quote, "My whole life has been dedicated to the service of my country." I believe that. Now for the elevator ride. There is so much to read while up at the observation deck level. Even though the views weren't those of most people's expectations, I found the fog and the rain to add a dimension of mystique and trial to the sights laid out in front of me. Here are the views from the four sides. La Infante envisioned a statue of George Washington on a horse at this place, but instead this obelisk was placed in the pinnacle point of the city, which faces the Lincoln Memorial, the White House, the Capitol, and Jefferson Memorial. And, of course, the stupendous World War II Memorial, the MLK Memorial, the Watergate, and the old post office tower where we just were, and the Smithsonian Castle. We saw all of these from the Washington Monument. How do you like these pictures in the fog and rain? I think they're all kind of cool, don't you? Architect alert. A few factoids about this monument, which is a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. Have you ever wondered why the Washington Monument is two colors? Masons used a bright white marble from a Maryland quarry in the first construction phase. Builders completed the monument in the 1880s with marble from another quarry. Wind and rain have weathered the stones differently, making the color change more dramatic over time. I had never known this until I visited. The monument has about 36,000 stones. The stones change colors at 150 feet. A very strong foundation keeps the monument upright. And the monument weighs about 81,000 tons. And now for a historian alert, one of the most famous of all of George Washington's quotes. "The preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government are justly considered as deeply, perhaps as finally staked on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people." This is from George Washington's inaugural address, April 30th, 1789. This was exceedingly interesting to me, strikingly beautiful and scary. What happens when lightning strikes the monument? In 1885, the first lightning strike cracked one of the stones. Since then, the monument's lightning protection system has been updated many times. These lightning rods, a little bent and burned, were removed and replaced in 2012. To learn more about the ticket requirements, I recommend watching my Day 1 video if you haven't yet. Also, for those of you who are not able to get a ride in the elevator, simply walking around the monument and beautiful grounds is mesmerizing. The Washington Monument is the obvious cornerstone of the Capitol. This monument stands in tribute to the military service of George Washington and the ideals of the nation he helped to create. The Washington Monument is one of the world's most iconic landmarks. How could I have missed going up in the elevator just because it was raining? No, I couldn't, so I didn't. Creator's note: I have been to George Washington's birthplace on the Potomac River in Virginia. I have been to the one and only place George Washington surrendered. He was only 22 years old, and he surrendered at Fort Necessity, found in southwest Pennsylvania. I have had the honor of walking through his beautiful home at Mount Vernon and standing in his bedroom where he drew his last breath. And I have stood outside his grave, and our son was allowed to go inside his tomb building. American history at its best. Now, let's go to dinner at Old Epic Grill, just a few blocks to the north along 15th Street Northwest. If only these walls could talk. You are now standing in Washington, D.C.'s oldest saloon, the Old Epic Grill. Originally founded by William E. Ebbett in 1856, the Ebbett House was a hotel and restaurant located on Newspaper Row, a stretch of properties occupied by the D.C. offices of the New York Times, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the New York Herald, and the New York Evening Post. Though the original structure was demolished in 1972, the present location of Old Epic Grill is situated within the second Empire-style hotel, also called Ebbett House, which was erected in 1862. Many of the original heirlooms have been preserved, including the property's collection of antique beer steins and the clock perched above the door. Oh, that clock got me. The original Victorian bar, a favorite of 6 presidents, has been replicated here to exact detail. You can read more about the history at ebbett.com. Many other famous statesmen, naval, and military heroes, too numerous to mention here, have been guests of the house. Some, though, include Ulysses S. Grant, Grover Cleveland, William McKinley, Andrew Johnson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Warren Harding. Those guys are all presidents. If you go to Washington, D.C., don't you think you ought to eat at Old Epic Grill? This is what we ordered for an appetizer. Do you like oysters? And these are our meals. And these are the desserts we chose. Do they look good to you? We had not eaten anything all day except a protein bar. And my feet are soaked, by the way. I have to tell you something funny about the famous clock above the door. As we were seated, I noticed the clock above the door that showed right at 5 o'clock. I didn't realize the clock didn't work. I just thought, wow, we made it at the exact time we had reservations. When I went to the restroom a few minutes later, I saw the hands had not moved. The joke was on me. Dinner was spectacular, and it was a great way to wind down the day. We decided that due to the yucky weather, we would not stay out late, and plus we were pretty exhausted. However, upon exiting the grill, the rain had lifted and we needed to take care of a day one workaround. We walked north and west to return to Lafayette Park to see the beautiful White House. President Trump's new beautiful flag was waving, and this put the cherry on top of our day. Here we are at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This historian's heart was full. Based on our location, it made sense for us to walk to the Farragut West train station and catch the orange, blue, or silver line to L'Enfant Station. I mentioned I'd give a few travel hacks. Believe me, once underground, you will likely lose your sense of direction, if you have one. The train signage does not necessarily always indicate an ordinal direction because the trains go in a variety of directions. What you look for is the terminus station name of the direction you want to go. For example, we needed to get to L'Enfant, so we needed to catch the orange train labeled New Carrollton, or either the blue or silver train labeled to Largo. Signage is all over the stations. Be sure that you are on the correct side of the tracks, though. Staircases and escalators provide access to the other side of the tracks. I highly recommend getting familiar with the system so you don't get tripped up, and I promise you'll be glad that you did. Riding the train was one of the fun aspects of this visit to D.C. In each train, there is a digital or computerized screen identifying the location of the train's next stops, and each stop is announced over the speaker system. Within just a few minutes, we were at L'Enfant Plaza. This is a large station and the major hub of the system. If you get to L'Enfant, you can get anywhere. We identified the green line to Branch. The next train was arriving in 7 minutes. The wait is never very long, and 20 minutes later we would be disembarking and walking to our car that was waiting for us at that huge parking lot where we had parked it hours and hours ago. One more travel hack: if you pay for parking with your Smart Trip, it's half price. So keep your Smart Trip loaded. It is easy to reload at the machines at any of the stations. Soaked, ugly shoes on the ground. Unclassic road trip in our nation's capital. Day 2 complete. Days 3 and 4 are going to be just as exciting and challenging. I promise. Be sure to like, subscribe, and most importantly, leave me a comment. If you love history, you might want to binge on my history playlist real soon.